Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. We are here today on a new set. We have lights, so hopefully it looks and sounds good. And today we are going to talk about the Skyliner. We're going to do a review on the Disney Skyliner. So we were in Disney a couple of weeks ago now in the end of October, and we stayed at Disney's Caribbean Beach Resort, and I wanted to wait until the construction was done there and the Skyliner was up and running until I tried it. So this really was like a total first impression. Now we stayed in the preferred section in Barbados in building 32. So I do have some times for you in terms of how long it takes to walk to the Skyliner station from our building and how long it takes on each of the routes. But before I get started, do you have anything to say?
I loved the Skyliner. I don't know about you. I think there was a few, or at least one negative experience that you had, but like you're gonna hear, I thought it was super convenient. I'm a fan.
He really liked it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Caribbean Beach Resort, we'll do a separate review video on that, but it's a very large resort, and when I'm saying the Caribbean Beach Resort Skyliner station, it's the transfer station. It's kind of considered to be the TTC, or the Transportation Ticket Center, which is a stop on the monorail for the Skyliner. So
I was impressed at how big that station was. I mean, there were 3 lines converging on that station.
Yes.
There's
one that goes to Pop Century and Art of Animation.
Yep.
That goes to the left when you're walking in. One that goes to Hollywood Studios that goes straight as you're walking in, and then the line that goes to the right goes to the Riviera, which then continues on to Epcot. So that was the closest station for us. If you were staying on the opposite end of the resort, near the Riviera Resort, which is not opening until December of this year, then you would go on you could go to the Riviera station. So what we did is we got on at the transfer station, and it was a 4-minute walk from our building until we got to the point where we were walking into the station. Now I also timed it from the point where I felt is like, okay, I'm now in the Skyliner station until I boarded, and that time is obviously gonna vary. Now when it was not a busy time of day, it was less than a minute. I walked right on. When it was busier, obviously you're going to wait.
And I think most times we either walked right on or waited in a short enough line that it felt like it. And because
Right, because it's constantly moving.
Because it constantly moves, the line constantly moves. So you don't have to wait a long time.
Right. What was I going to say? Oh yes, in terms of loading, they load them, they're called cabins. They load each cabin like they do a regular ride. They ask you how many people. When it was a very slow time, I had a cabin all to myself. We had a cabin to ourselves when it was just the 2 of us. I should say when I was alone, we weren't together. I was there by myself. It's not like they separated us or anything.
You had an extra day and a half of vacation before I got there.
Yes.
So you got to experience this first and ride alone.
And that's when I took all my times and things like that.
Yeah, and there's a vlog already up about your first experience on the Skyliner as well. That's when that happened. But I would say half the time or more than half the time did we get to be on the Skyliner by ourselves without another family.
Pretty close
with us.
to half.
I would say about half the time.
They seat 10 people. There's no standing. There's a bench on either side. They seat 10 people. I would say the fullest cabin we've ever been in was after the Epcot fireworks show, Epcot Forever, and then we had probably 7 or 8 people. It was still ample room. People were still kind of sitting sideways, so that was not a problem. Air circulation was something people were very concerned about. I was surprised how well ventilated they are because there's no air conditioning. It is like there's vent openings around every side and along the floors. So it was actually quite breezy when you were moving. The day I was there alone with the heat index and the humidity, it felt like it was 99 degrees. So it was not cool by any means. When it was stopped and I was alone, I was stopped for like 3.5 minutes. It didn't get hot then either because it was quite breezy that day. And if you watch the video, I comment on how like it was really, really bouncing up and down because of all of the wind and everything. Now, if you're completely stationary and it's a hot day and there's a lot of people in there, yeah, it's going to get hot. It absolutely is going to get hot. Hopefully that does not happen. There was a couple of times where we thought we were stopped, but we since learned from one of the cast members that it's actually just moving very slowly. You want to explain why?
Yeah, the reason for that was because of an ECV or a wheelchair. And all of the stations except for one, I believe, have a separate kind of part of the loop.
And that's the Riviera station.
Yep, is the one that doesn't have this. But the rest of them have this separate loop where there's a car pulled off to the side and completely stopped for wheelchairs.
Cabin.
A cabin. For wheelchairs and things like that to load, and then it rejoins the line and another one comes off the line for the next one. But the Riviera station does not have that. So if there's somebody in a wheelchair or an ECV loading or unloading at the Riviera station, then the line is going to slow down to the point where it looks like it's stopped, but apparently it's not completely stopped.
Right.
Like it is crawling very slowly.
So the idea is you have like your main loop, and then you have this separate little loop with a couple of cabins in it, and then those cabins are always stationary. So if somebody's coming in an ECV, they wheel into that cabin, and then it joins the main loop, and then another car comes around. So it's supposed to be fluid. It's not as fluid as it kind of sounds like it should be. It does still slow down when the cabin is leaving and joining the loop, but it is definitely much faster than when that happens at the Riviera station.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to give you guys some time. So I said it was a 4-minute walking casually, not my normal type A person pace, from building 32 in the Barbados section to the transfer station. We less than a minute until I was boarded. Then from that station until I got off at Epcot was 11 minutes and 18 seconds. And again, this is going to vary a little bit based on if you are stopped, if they have to stop it because of somebody in a wheelchair or something to that effect. But it was 11 minutes and 18 seconds. So what you do is if you're getting on the Epcot line at the transfer station at Caribbean Beach, you go to the Riviera station. And I didn't get that time because it's not really relevant. It's less than 5 minutes. And you then get to the Riviera station, and the doors open, and they ask if anybody's getting off. If not, they say stay on, and it's about another 10 minutes till you get to Epcot. So you go around, the doors close, you go around the corner, the doors open again, and that is for people who will be getting on. Now at this point, because the Riviera is not open, very few people are getting on there, and it's really just the people at that end of Caribbean Beach Resort. So then you move on to Epcot, and that's 11 minutes and 18 seconds. Now, going back, I just wanted to time it to see how big of a difference there was, and I got on at Epcot, and then it was 14 minutes and 37 seconds until I got off at the transfer station at Caribbean Beach. And that is when I was stopped between the Riviera station and the Caribbean Beach station. And I think you can assume if you're stopped, you are going to be stopped either at the highest point or just before the platform where you could get out.
Right.
So it's going to be one of those.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's like a guarantee. Okay, so then we were at Hollywood Studios waiting to board the Skyliner to come back to the Caribbean Beach transfer station, and that was 1 minute and 23 seconds. And that was the time from when I entered the station, or we entered the station, until we actually boarded. So that's like walking through it and waiting in line. Then the ride from Hollywood Studios to the Caribbean Beach station was 4 minutes and 43 seconds. Now the longest we waited was after Epcot Forever, the Epcot fireworks show. So we knew that this was going to be the busiest time. And from the time we waited until we boarded was 17 minutes and 50 seconds.
And I was actually really happy with that. That line was super long. It was long enough that it was coming out into the walkway, so they actually had to have a cast member holding a sign saying the line starts here. And I mean, if you think about the buses come once every 20 minutes. Ish. Sometimes longer. Sometimes much longer. We've experienced much longer.
Sometimes less. You're being glass half empty.
But considering how long that line was, the fact that it was only 17 minutes to get on was not that bad. And again, it doesn't feel that bad because you're always kind of slowly moving because it's a continuous moving gondola system.
Which would, I guess, make it kind of difficult if somebody were to like run out of line to get something and come back. That wouldn't really be possible because the line's always moving. You're never going to find the people again.
I'm not an advocate of that anyway. Once you're in line, stay in line.
Right. There are mitigating circumstances. Okay, but comparing it to the other Disney transport systems, we have now used all of the Disney transportation systems. We are quite familiar with the monorails and the buses and the boats. Now, if you guys watched my beignets video that I filmed at Port Orleans French Quarter, I took the boat to and from between Disney Springs and Port Orleans French Quarter. And on the way back, there was a transportation snafu of sorts where like 2 people were supposed to stop and pick us up with their boat, and they didn't. Now, because everybody kind of rotates, it is not fair to say, I won't stay at French Quarter because of that.
Right.
Because that person might then be working at Riverside, or so you can't really tell.
Sure.
And things are gonna happen. It wasn't like I waited an hour. It was not that. It was, I didn't even time it. It was definitely over 20 minutes though. And there were people waiting before I got there. So that does happen everywhere.
Yeah.
Monorails, we have been stopped on a monorail before where it's hot and stuffy, it's not moving. You're in a closed space and people are screaming. And buses. So the thing with the buses that we have experienced that was the biggest difference for us was, if you have been to Disney, you know the feeling. It's like a fear
Yes.
that when
I
you
know what you're
leave
going
the
to say.
park and you are walking to the bus stop and you have to sprint because you see a bus there and it's just getting ready to pull away, and then you have to wait another 20 minutes. So you're tired, you're hot, you're crabby, you're hungry, then you're running for your bus and you just missed it, and now you have to like stand there and there's like no good place to sit. And
I think that's the biggest reason that the Skyliner might be my new favorite form of transportation, because that's true of monorails and boats too. If you're
but not as long.
Not as long,
No,
but
the
if you're-
monorail comes much more frequently.
Right, but if you're walking towards the station and you see a bus, monorail, or boat already there, like you feel like you need to run because you don't know how long it is before they're gonna close boarding and pull away, and then you have to wait for the next one. The Skyliner is continuously moving. You know there's going to be a cabin there waiting for you.
Right.
And I think that mindset is just, I don't know.
It's a big difference.
It's something. It's one less thing to worry about. The other thing about what are you doing?
You have a scout here, and it's like, okay, I couldn't focus. Carry on.
Okay. The other thing about the other forms of transportation is they pack them in. The boats not so much, but the buses and the monorail, like you will have times that you're packed in there like sardines. They don't do that.
Do
with
we
the-
really know what that means? Have you ever opened a can of sardines?
Yes.
Why have you ever
They're
opened
packed
it?
in there tightly. They're like laying.
No, I mean, I know what it means, but like, have you ever experienced that? Have you literally ever opened in your life a can of sardines? You have not. When have you done that?
I don't know, but I have.
I don't think you have. And I feel as though, as a society, we need to come up with a better term.
Fine. You're packed in there like, what's something that's packed really tightly?
Like our mattress that came all like vacuum sucked into that box.
Yes.
Something everybody can relate to.
Yes. Give us better ones in the comments section. But you're packed in, and it is uncomfortable. That happens on the monorails and the buses. When you're on the Skyliner, the maximum is 10, and
Nobody's standing.
Right.
So you
Everybody's
will get a
seated on
seat.
the bench. And then it's just, there's something soothing about just gliding in the air. There's no motor sound. There's like, it's quiet, and
It is
like
pretty
you just
quiet.
hear kind of the breeze going through. And one of the coolest moments I thought was when we were coming back at the end of the night, and we had a Skyliner cabin. It was us and one other family. We weren't packed in there very tightly, and you see the fireworks from all the parks all around. That was pretty cool.
That was very cool. I will say, okay, so in terms of heights, you know you're high. I don't have a fear of heights. If you saw that vlog, it's all fine and good until you get stopped, and then I was a little like,
And then you're in the wind, kind of waving around.
oh, it was exceptionally windy that day. I handled it just fine. I don't have a fear of heights, but I don't like them. He asked if I broke into the emergency kit. I'm like, I think you have to wait like until you're stopped for a full 5 minutes before you break out the water because you're like dehydrated or something. They do have emergency kits
At
under
least
the bench.
5 minutes.
So that didn't happen. I will say it was unusual. We had stopped for a much shorter period of time, a couple of other times in the trip, and every other time they had made an announcement. Of course, the first time I'm stopped, I'm by myself, I'm up high, there is no announcement at all. And that was kind of disconcerting because I'm like, my gosh, even when you're like on Haunted Mansion or something, the second you stop, they're like, please stay seated, your ride will, the ride will resume motion momentarily or something. Please stay seated in
Playful
your dune buggy.
spirits have
Have interrupted your tour.
Yeah.
So that was a little unusual, but we went through that several more times, and every other time there was an announcement.
Yeah.
That kind of makes it sound like, oh, it's stopping a lot. Not a lot. It's not stopping because it's malfunctioning a lot. I think based on the amount of time it felt like we were stopped, it was just people who are loading in an ECV.
I think so. They do say that it stops for inclement weather, and they have signs now ever since the incident that occurred like a week after the Skyliner opened that says that, like any other gondola system in the world, the Skyliner may experience interruptions.
That seemed kind of passive aggressive to me. When
It
I
did,
saw that,
right.
I was like, because it kind of seemed to me, I have no idea. I don't know, was this sign there before? I'm not
does kind of
sure.
seem passive
It
aggressive.
kind of seemed like people made a big fuss about it after the collision, crash, accident, whatever you want to call it. People get really upset if you use the wrong term here. At the Riviera station, that Disney was like, well, you know, this happens in other places too.
Yeah.
I don't know. That kind of.
I thought so too. I think, okay, I love the Skyliner. I think it adds value to staying at Caribbean Beach, Pop Century, or Art of Animation, or the Riviera.
Yes, agreed.
I am definitely much more likely to want to stay at those hotels now. The other thing I was thinking about, you always, as a travel agent, used to kind of not recommend the pirate rooms at Caribbean Beach because they're so far away from everything, but they're actually
is
pretty
really
close to the
going to
Skyliner
change.
station.
Yes.
It has changed.
But I mean, it's still just as far from the main building and the food court.
But at least
and
now it's close to something.
it
It's
is
close to
right,
transportation.
right? As opposed to being close to nothing.
If you don't like heights, you probably won't like the Skyliner. That's just a fact. And I think the other thing to be aware of, the first time you ride it, the kind of freaky thing is when you're pulling into a station.
You watch, well, the first time when you're walking in
So
and you see it, you're like, oh my Lord.
So what happens is the Skyliner cabins actually disconnect from the cable when they reach a station, and then they travel at a different speed than you're traveling when you're actually up on the cables.
Because they're using they have like a wheel. as well.
Which is kind of cool, which allows it to continuously load and unload. It's kind of freaky that it like connects and disconnects all the time. It makes me think like, man, I hope it's connecting tightly, but clearly that's not a problem, or it wouldn't be allowed to operate. But when you first pull into the station, like you look like you're going to hit the cars in front of you, and you actually kind of, and when it comes in, like it stops fast enough or stops short enough that like the car actually swings forward because it's like slamming on its brakes. It's kind of freaky the first time, but then
I think I may have commented on it in the vlog where I was arriving. I was like, oh my gosh, look how, I don't know if I have it, like if I caught it on camera, but I definitely said that at first. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going so fast.
There were times that we rode with people too who had it was their first trip on the Skyliner, and they commented on
how fast. But it's not like scary fast when you're riding it. No. He commented on the inclement weather. So there was one time, there were a couple of times where it was down due to inclement weather. It never affected us on our trip, and we definitely had inclement weather during our trip. We just happened to not be riding the Skyliner at that time. But the Skyliner transfer station at the end of Caribbean Beach Resort, or middle to end on the left kind of side, they have a bus stop there as well. So when the Skyliner was down, they had a spot there for an Epcot bus. And they would have had for Hollywood Studios as well, but the Epcot bus was there, is my point. So there is you do still have a way to get there if, you don't have to worry about that. The other thing is the times. So when we were there, and I know this isn't, the times have kind of changed now, but when we were there, they had extra magic hours where Hollywood Studios opened at 6.
Oh, yes.
And the Skyliner did not start running until 8 or 8:30.
Yeah.
So even when, I'm curious to know, like, so when it opens at 7, when it opens at 8, like, are they ever going to adjust the times? It was still kind of early. But you could not have ridden the Skyliner to Hollywood Studios and be there for the park opening. You would have had to have taken a bus.
Yeah, that was the only disappointing part to me. We are people who always do park opening. Our routine is we're at the parks from opening till about lunchtime. Before they open.
We're very
we
religious.
always take advantage of morning extra magic hours. Then we go home. Go to the resort in the afternoon, relax, sit by the pool, take a nap, and come back at dinner time. So we always are looking for transportation before park opening, and it was disappointing that the Skyliner is not open.
Yeah,
for that.
So
that was the biggest problem with it for me.
We had rented a car, so we just drove to Hollywood Studios. It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would have been nice because then going from Hollywood Studios, we went over to Epcot, and it would have been nice to just take the Skyliner or to walk from Hollywood Studios to Epcot and then take the Skyliner back. But then we had our car because we needed it in the morning. So.
Right. I don't know. End of the day for me, I think the Skyliner is a pretty big deal, the whole new form of transportation at Disney World, and I'm impressed.
After you've walked like 13 miles that day, you're tired.
Yep, I'm impressed. Again, I think my only criticism is I wish it was open before park opening for like extra magic hours at Epcot and Hollywood Studios.
Agreed. Okay, so I think that's all we have to say about the Skyliner. It was overall obviously a very positive experience, and
Yep.
I will definitely look forward to using it again. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye guys.